we should call maintenance.
I'll fix it. I'm gonna fix it.
Concentrate it, maintain it, maintain control.
Maintenance complete.
This is The Maintainers, a Blue Cap community podcast. My name is David Lee, director at Traction, and your host for The Maintainer Show.
And I'm Jake Hall, the manufacturing millennial, a adverb person who likes to highlight all the amazing stories in manufacturing. And today we're joined by a special guest. We have Walt Harrison, who's the controls and automation engineer for Swarco Reflex LLC. We're going to talk a lot about his story, his background being in the military, talk about the transition into maintenance and why he joined the team, and also talk about some really cool applications on what they're doing their product for. But before that, a word from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Traction. Traction offers streamlined hardware and software solutions designed to make maintenance more reliable and profitable. Their AI-powered condition monitoring and asset management solution predicts machine failures and unplanned downtime, allowing clients to save an average of $10 million every trimester. It's artificial intelligence quarterbacking your maintenance.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Walt. First off, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good. Is summer going well? Are you ready to roll into the fall?
Well, it's Texas, and we're running about 80 days this summer that have been 100 plus. So I'm looking forward to anything that's not 100 plus.
Okay, so let's roll with that then. So if we're not at your location, we could be recording this in person and be anywhere in the world that has like a past memory of a place that you've enjoyed going to or a place that you want to go to. Where would we be recording this podcast right now?
Well, I'd be weaving a hat on the beach of Belize, and we'd all be unemployed but happy.
That doesn't seem too bad for me. I'll take that.
So tell us more about your background and how you got started in the industry, transitioning from the military, and basically how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I joined the military not long after high school. I was a 14 Juliet early warning system operator, trained on a radar that never existed. They handed me a pair of binoculars and away we went. I later, during the military, was brought up to our headquarters unit, which was an initiative started by the Department of Defense. This was 94. And we had this brand new operating system that the civilians didn't even have. And it was called Windows 95. And at that point, we created the first tactical integrated operations center, which was a lot of training and really kind of caught my attention on the kind of the IT world. And it was good because I learned a whole bunch of systems and it kept me from having to fill up generators. So, yeah, it was nice. But after the military, I decided that, I was going to relax a little bit, and I did my junior college tour of Texas, made a few appearances at Blinn College, Navarro College, Hill College, Tyler Junior College, and finally decided that I was going to graduate, and graduated from Sam Houston with a management information systems degree in 2002. Decided that I really wanted to go into database administration, stay in the whole IT world. But at that point, we were kind of at the end of the .com era, and we had a lot of 5-year database administrators who were unemployed, and nobody was really looking for a green hand to come in and train. So ended up starting in the IT, sure enough, IT support, worked for a small school district here in Mahia. We had about 1,200 computers and 200 software packages. And, being from a small school district, we didn't have a network group. So I was the network group. I was the server support group. I was the IP telephony group. I mean, we did it all. It was me and one other gentleman, and we had a good time. Definitely learned a lot of stuff. Learned how to be as efficient as possible. But after that, a colleague of mine turned me on to a small oil and gas company called XTO Energy. They later became the largest independent producer in the United States and were bought by Exxon. So that was a fun trip. But I was with them for about 10 years, did IT for a year, and got in. I was helping the SCADA group, and the SCADA group was looking for a person to help support the Eastern Division, which goes from Monroe, Louisiana to Hearne, Texas. It's a long and big area. The supervisor of that group was a gentleman named Steve Bertram, who I met on my day one indoctrination at XTO, and I was really impressed by him. And I just said, I kind of want to work for this guy. I don't even know what they do. And so I literally Googled SCADA before I called him and said, hey, I want to work for your group. He said, well, that's good. He said, my group wants you to work with us. And so I started working with it, not knowing anything, but unfortunately I had a great mentor, and he instilled a bunch of really incredible values in how I look at my career. And he always would say, don't be the last man with a secret, and always be training your replacement, because you don't know when you're going to get moved into a new position or maybe to a different area. But, the more people that know how to do your job makes it a lot easier. And that way, if you get hit by a bus, the company still goes on. But, at the same time, you don't have that dependency from your company that you're the only guy that can do it. I mean, you've taken the time to train other folks. So anyway, he was a great mentor, and I really gravitated toward our plants. We had 3 natural gas treating plants here in the limestone freestone area. It was known as the Freestone Trend, and that was very interesting. We upgraded 2 of the plants to an Emerson product called Delta V, which is controls, and I really enjoyed that. So I did a lot of training and did a lot of work with that. I was always told that, you're not really a controls guy until you shut down a plant. And we can circle back to that because I got a funny story about that.
So what was that transition like, going from military to IT to natural gas to, where you are now? Like, what are some of the biggest, I guess you could say, experiences or like surprises for you from doing that?
The hardest part about going from IT to, say, my role here is most people don't speak IT. And so if it is a technical issue, we have to kind of break it down Barney style and be able to communicate what you're trying to do. But, at the same time, it's like David did in the military. You're changing boxes, and, you have that ability to be able to break down something a little bit further. They always say RTFM, and, you can get a lot out of reading the manual. But, same time, you also got to understand what you're doing. So it's a just different thing. I mean, you wouldn't dive off into an IT project without understanding the technology you're working with. It's the same thing with, maintaining your equipment. You got to understand your equipment.
So now that we know a little bit more about you, I think it's time to jump into our first segment, which we call the Maintainer Mashup.
Maintenance required.
Listen, I maintain. I maintain it myself.
Maintain course.
Maintain speed.
I gotta maintain respect.
Where we dive deeper into, the equipment, the management, the teams that you work with around maintenance. So that kind of leads to my first question. So you spent time in the military, the gas field, IT side, but now you're at a company called Swarco Reflex. And can you talk about more about your role there, but maybe to start with, what does Swarco do to kind of set the precedence of everything involved with it?
Right. So Swarco Reflex here in Mahia, we make a glass bead that is injected into road marking surfaces. So when you're driving down the highway at night and you can see the reflection in the stripes, the white stripe, the yellow stripe, that's probably one of our products. There are other companies that make them, but we make them better.
Walk us through the science behind it. So we have inside, they're putting down paint, and inside that paint is the material that you guys are manufacturing.
Right. As the paint is applied to the road surface, our beads are injected second. So the paint goes down, then our beads are injected on top of that. So it allows the beads to adhere to the road surface via the paint. But you have more exposure to that glass, which, again, we want perfect spheres, and the perfect spheres are what allows that reflection.
So we're sprinkling the sprinkles on top of the ice cream in a sense of what we're doing. Now, what are the size of these balls? Can you tell us like that? Like what's the size that we're talking in terms of this? A grain of sand or smaller than a grain of sand?
We'll say bigger than a grain of sand.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see this
Yeah, it looks like salt, on my screen. So
Yeah.
right, okay, and they're actual balls, so it's not like little
Yeah.
shavings or break up. They're fully cylindrical in that.
We actually run
that-
them through an instrument called a cam sizer, which takes thousands of photos and grades the beads based on their roundness and will give us a percentage. And our goal is, 90+% roundness. So they're perfectly spherical. And you can see when you go back and look at the pictures, you can see the spheres.
And what's the type of equipment that like goes into making that? Because I think you mentioned a lot of this is recycled material, right?
A recycled glass.
And so going in from that recycled glass, can you kind of walk us through that process and share what you can?
Yeah. Well, we use a combination of some raw materials that are just normal things that are found naturally. We had a glass doctor, is what we called him, who helped us formulate our glass formula, and he basically dialed it in to where we have the best mix of recycled plus raw materials to give us the lowest cost. So we use that raw cullet as we refer to it, which is just plate glass, and then these raw materials, they're mixed, and we actually have an equipment. It's an X-ray fluorescent spectrometer, and we can take our glass and run it through there, and it will give us an exact chemical composition of what our glass is. It's pretty fantastic. And then we also use a visible light spectrometer, and we polish a glass sample and we shoot visible light through it, and it also can determine what your composition is. So we're looking at it from two different angles.
Nice. And so now for the rest of my life, when I drive on an American highway, I will think about Walt and Swarco.
Well, you can think about that wherever you drive in the world, because Swarco has 67 companies throughout the world, and our products, even from Mahia, Texas, are shipped all over the Americas.
Wow, that's amazing. Awesome. So getting a product like this internationally out to market with quality like you all do, there has to be a strong culture behind that, right? So I'd like to kind of frame that culture and how you all think about that. So let's talk a little bit about the culture and what you all are striving for as it relates to Swarco.
Some of our customers, actually a lot of our customers, have their own specifications that we have to meet. So we have an in-house quality assurance program to make sure that our product is matching their specifications. In some cases, we have to send them off to third-party labs to verify that. But, our goal is to make our customers happy and, to get them the product that they want in a timely fashion. That way, right now, this is peak season. You see road construction everywhere. So we're in a very busy time of the year for the glass bead business.
Right. And one of the most important things for these customers, right, is that consistency and that reliability, essentially. So let's talk a little bit about how reliability ties into this. And we can talk about the culture as well. But anything that you would like to kind of mention from that perspective?
One of the things as far as reliability is ensuring that, there's product for our customers. And so part of that goes to our operations. We have to make sure that our equipment is doing what it's supposed to do, because you walked through and did a critical analysis on from the front end to the back end, from raw materials to finished materials. I mean, down to the forklifts that are moving our product. There's a lot of critical points. So we have to make sure that we have that uptime, and we're a 24-hour operation. We have shifts that run all day long. Once we fired up our melter, it won't stop until the melter refractory is complete used.
Huh.
So being 24 hours, there are, it's hard on equipment, and it's a melter. It's hot at about 30 feet. It's approximately 125 ambient temperature. So it's a very harsh environment for equipment. So maintenance is top priority.
Right. And am I right about this? I heard that you all have the largest melter in North America.
It is the largest direct melter in North America.
What makes it a direct melter? Can you walk us, like, what's usually like a melter and like a direct melter?
As we have a large tank that is molten glass, and we are adding our product or our raw materials in a batch, which is all, continuously adding, and it adds that to that. So, and we're applying the heat to that chamber, and that makes it direct melt.
Okay. So, early on you mentioned about uptime and this being like a 24, hour operation. I can't imagine when you're getting to high temperatures, right? You're in a critical state of you have to then accomplish, a certain amount of tasks within a certain time. Otherwise, all the product that you have, is going to go bad. I feel like there's like a sense of time urgency when it comes to things. What are you doing to, ensure that all of the pieces are in place, ready to go? You mentioned you've had a SCADA background, so you're getting this like real time information. But like, what are you doing to make sure that, hey, we just put a ton of material inside of this melter, and we have all of these processes now that are going to be needing to happen in a critical state in the next 30, 60 minutes, 3 hours, 6 hours. What are you doing to ensure that those pieces of equipment are ready from from a maintenance perspective?
Well, we did an analysis of our critical equipment, and we decided to go with a product from Traction to monitor our devices. And so we're in the initial stages. We passed our 2 weeks on some of our equipment, which, basically builds a timeline for your equipment and gives you some, I guess a baseline is more specific, gives you that information about that equipment and then how it's supposed to look when it's normally running. In the case that something develops, this system has alerted us, and we can jump on it. It's so from a maintenance standpoint, it gives us a lot better transparency to our machinery.
Right. I want to hear a little bit, Walt, about your goals and what do you see this project evolving to with respect to your actual facility as well as your sister facility?
Like I said, when we did an analysis of, where are critical points of failure, it came up to it's all critical.
Right.
There are some that are more critical, there's some that are less critical, but it's all critical. So our goal is to stop the devices from failing on their terms. We can detect a device that is, out of spec and have a replacement ready. And, if it's possible, we'll go ahead and pull that equipment and have it serviced. If it's electric motor, we'll send it off and have coils rewound and rebuilt just so that we don't have that failure, because it's a lot easier for us to take something down when we know, because we can make the changes on both ends of the motor, whether it's coming or going, to, allow for that downtime. So downtime on our terms is really what we're looking for. And I know our maintenance supervisor is just beside himself with this system right now.
So when you look at, I'm curious, you mentioned, sister facility, you have two buildings. How much of a similarity is there between the two buildings? Are they the same processes going on, or is one a secondary operation coming from the first one?
Well, some of our, we at this plant make Megalux beads. Our sister facility makes the standard beads. Some of our customers want a blend of standard and Megalux beads. So what they do over there is entirely different, but they do have critical points of failure that they want to do the same thing. So I'm not as versed because most of their systems are not automated. And so, we have a variety of PLCs that, run this plant. So I'm not over there as much, but, we still are making glass beads.
All right. So transitioning to our next segment, we're going to talk about what's in your toolbox.
We're gonna fix it. Get the tool.
Pick the one right tool.
The right tool for the right job.
So you have excelled in our field and in our community as well. So tell us a little bit about what you utilize from a technology perspective, maybe your tech stack, what type of things help you personally that you're utilizing and approaches and things. What's in your toolbox essentially helping you as we speak?
Start with the basic stuff. I have a Fluke 789 process meter. I have a Fluke Megger for testing insulation. And of course, I've just got my regular old multimeter with ohms. And after that, then I start looking at data. We have our SCADA system on these processes, and I can pull up and harvest data from there. And matter of fact, we're currently harvesting data and putting it in a report so that our supervisors can view, how much material did we use, and when did they do it, and are they doing it? But looking at all of my historical data, the first thing I do is I look at all my alarms. I look at trends, looking for, any anomalies in amperages and temperatures, and are we running on this machine when it's supposed to be running, and how much downtime do we have on this machine? So that's the type of tools that I have. It makes the world a lot easier.
Awesome. Yeah. So having these type tools, obviously, it makes things scalable, consistent, and all the above, I would say, positive characteristics that we're looking for here. And so also with this toolkit and your background, you must have I would say, a box of tools that you utilize, whether it be leadership approaches, tenets, and things from the military, in your experiences. Let's talk a little bit about that. I'd like to hear about your actual experience more and how that applies to what you're doing from a leadership perspective and a technology perspective as well.
I want to make sure that anyone that I'm working with understands why we're doing what we're doing, and can they do the same thing? And then the answer is yes. Because when I'm done, I want to make sure that they understand fully what we just did and why.
Yeah, and so we've heard this a lot, not only from yourself, from previous guests, but also you'll see this theme of having a mentor. As someone who has benefited greatly from mentors, I definitely would like to talk a little bit about that before we move on. How would you advise the people who want to get to where you're getting with this type of guidance? How should they seek to find a mentor, for example, or if like someone wanted to reach out to you that may be getting out of the military and know they're starting their first maintenance or reliability job?
It's pretty easy to figure out who knows what's going on. And, it may be the crusty old dude that's been there for 30 years, or it may be somebody who just arrived, but people have the ability to broadcast their knowledge and seek those people out. The guys that, are the ones that they call in the middle of the night. Those guys, and just ask questions. I mean, obviously there's a timing issue. If you're in the middle of a fire, you're not, it's not time to train, but, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and watch those guys and mimic their behaviors. And one of the things, it doesn't cost you anything, but it just showing up to work on time and keep your eyes open and be willing to do the job. I mean, that's free. It doesn't cost you a dime to do that. And that's how you learn.
Yeah, that's really good advice. One of my, let's say, not mentors, but he was someone ahead of me in our career. He once said to me, I have mentors and they don't even know that they're my mentor because I just follow what they do. And of course, this was a former Army veteran, right? So, so it makes sense that mentality is definitely there intact. So that's really good words.
I love that phrase. There's a lot of people who are mentors that have no idea. I could reflect back to, 4 or 5 people in my life as well, where they had no idea they were one of my mentors, but man, did they make an impact on my life to get where I am today. So driving back to, the what's in the toolkit. The question I always like to know on operations that are happening there, right? You guys are a 24-hour operation, but Walt, you can't be there 24 hours a day. So what are you doing to ensure that processes run when you are not on the floor? What are some tricks of the trade? How are you, I guess you could say, designating responsibilities? What are some things that we could learn from?
Well, I think a lot of it is just communication, speaking with the shift supervisors and operators, ensuring that they know what's going on and be able to identify and detect a problem before it's a problem. Usually, if operator's in tune with his processes, he knows when a motor's doing something it's not supposed to do, or he knows if a material conveyor is, you know, making a squeak. But not all operators do that. Some of them hold that information to themselves, and then it becomes a problem. So it's just train and train and continue to train, and just you know you may say it 10 times, but you know if that's what it takes for an operator or someone to understand that it's not wasting time if you're not getting called out.
All right. So, Walt, you actually mentioned earlier that you have a really good story that you'd like to tell. So, can we double back now and talk about that? Because I'm super interested in hearing this.
Absolutely. So we were in the process of adding, this was when I was with XTO. We were in the process of adding a refrigeration portion to the gas stream, which takes the natural gas down to -40 and knocks out the heavy C chain. So basically knocks out propane and butane, and makes this a product that can be held at atmosphere. It's a kind of a gasoline type substance that comes from natural gas. So we hadn't brought on the refridge, but we were just bringing the plant back up. It takes a while to get all those systems. There's amine and glycol, and you have to heat that up to a certain temperature. And we were in the process of heating, and everything's looking good. And I'm working on the refridge module, and I went to download a portion of the refridge to enable a couple of instruments that we had added. And when I didn't go to that unit. I went to the whole plant. And as I downloaded, it took the plant down, and it got real quiet. And then a whoa. And I look out, and it was nighttime or early morning. I look out, and all of a sudden the plant is even more illuminated. And so everything had gone to flare, which I call the devil's cigarette lighter, because this flame is shooting up about 200 feet in the air. And because the whole plant is purging. And it was, there's 900 pounds of pressure on this plant. And so there was a lot of gas that went out in a very short period of time. And that's when my mentor said, "Well, you're a programmer now. You shut down the plant."
I would assume that's part of like a safety process, right? If they need to go out there, they need to push all the air out. They open up a couple valves and pressurize
No,
air.
it does it automatically. It just, everything went to emergency shutdown and flared out. So yeah, there was no stopping that. So we had to start back over we had to pressurize the plant and start firing up burners. And yeah, it was,
Oh, man.
needless to say, the operators were not happy with me.
Yeah, that kind of would kill off any plans for the rest of that shift. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So as we talk about the future, this next segment's the future of factories, maybe not necessarily the future of mistakes that we've made in the past. But we're going to cover, the new trends that we're seeing in our industry, and what we want to look forward to, going forward.
Meet the future!
To our futures.
What future?
The factory. My factory. Everybody's factory.
I love your factory.
My factory, my rules.
When we think about the future of factories, we think about a upcoming workforce that needs to be trained, to be excited to work, with these jobs. So what would you give, advice, Walt, for people who are wanting to either cross over into the industry, to looking, for their future career, or, they're just graduating from the military and they're exploring what you're doing? What advice would you give them who want to enter this industry?
Well, one of the things right now is we are living in the digital age. More and more technologies are becoming available, such as our product with traction. So data is the key. So you have to have almost a hybrid mechanic. You have to have somebody who can understand the physical process and the mechanical process of this, but also understand this data side and how to interpret the data that you're receiving from this. That is what it's going to take. And it takes a smarter workforce. You have to be diligent about your training. It doesn't hurt to take up a couple of, a PLC course, or, just an introduction, so you can understand that technology And that way you can communicate with somebody and say, is this a mechanical? Is this an electrical, or is this a control? That being said, our workforce has to be diligent, and you have to take care of yourself. So, again, you have to get the training and you have to put forth an effort because, I mean, nobody wants an untrained hand to come in and, start from nothing. They want somebody who can hit the ground boots running because, I mean, we're looking at a capital expense, when you have an employee. And so you're looking for a return on investment. And, hey, we're going to pay you this amount of money. What can you do for us? I want to keep your plant running.
That's really good stuff to touch on. As things evolve, as we get more technologically advanced, there becomes more challenges now, right? So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that come along with wanting to become this actual high-tech hybrid worker. Do you see us being able to find those people being a challenge in the future? And then also, do you see it to be a potential challenge for that person to become this needed employee that we have now?
Well, I'm looking at you wearing a gaming headset and Jake sitting in a gaming chair. Yeah, the technology and the people are well versed in it. I mean, it is almost like a video game when you're staring at an HMI and you're looking at the plant process, because you move your mouse and click a button and a motor starts or it turns off or a belt moves or elevator turns on. That part's pretty easy to get. So you're already comfortable with holding a controller in your hand. What's the difference between holding a keyboard and a mouse? So I believe those people are out there. It's how do we equip them and how do they equip themselves? There are lots of resources out there. And a lot of the stuff that I've learned is self-taught just from watching videos. There's lots of, training videos on, how to test a motor, understanding the electrical wiring basic stuff. I mean, it's all out there and it's free and it's, incredible resources.
The
So
YouTube diploma is what I call it.
yes. Yeah. But we laugh at it, but it really does help.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, all the experiences, like in terms of like video editing and sound editing, or setting up my 3D printer behind me, or fixing my cars. I mean, everything I learn now is access to free information. And I think, I always laugh. My father told me, he says, Jake, get off your cell phone and go learn something, and that's what was told to me 10 years ago when I'm in high school. And I'm thinking, and I literally now I'm literally doing all my job on my phone. My entire job is completed through emails, through cameras, through video editing. Like all the tools are on here. And it's just what a transition that we've seen where, we get the future, when we want to bring in the future generation of people, it's like they're digital natives. They love this technology, embrace it. Don't try and shun it.
All right.
All right, so before we move on to our next segment, Walt, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, like how you imagine the future of factories, even if it's in the distant future?
Well, I'll say that the modern factory now has to be just as concerned, because as we start bringing on these computer systems that control our system, and we start wanting people who want that data, we have to be diligent about our op security between the data that's in the plant and controls are in the plant and, those bad actors out there who are trying to manipulate and, cause problems. I mean, we've already seen in the last year a pipeline, an electrical grid, things are being attacked. So it is important that modern manufacturing facilities have to have that cost of, and it is a cost. I mean, it's a significant cost, but you have to include that in your operation budget because there is somebody out there who wants to shut you down and just because they can. And, if you don't spend the time to secure your networks, whatever it takes, firewalls, demilitarized zones in between, operations and IT, whatever you have to do, you need to do it. And, there's an initiative in a lot of sectors right now, especially oil and gas, to make that as secure as possible because of what they do. If we shut down we're not going to cause any problems in the town other than the fact that our board of directors are going to be really upset. But if a gas plant shuts down, it could explode, and you can't put out a gas plant. Or you see chemical fires and things like that that are absolute beasts, and they take special training, and that's why they have special fire departments down along the coast that can manage that stuff. But again, it's operation security. That's where the future has to go. And again, I spoke about the digital age. There is so much. I mean, everything is getting connected. It doesn't surprise me now when I purchase a new device and it has an Ethernet port on it. I mean, it's pretty much standard.
Oh my gosh. I got a new stove a while back, and there's a QR code I can scan on my stove where now I have an app where I can literally go in and preheat my oven, remotely on my phone. It's like everything is connected now. You can't find one new appliance that you're buying these days that it's not Bluetooth enabled or Wi-Fi enabled. Oh my gosh. I went out there and got a new thermometer for my smoking briskets and meats and stuff like that. It's like, here's a Bluetooth monitor, you connect it in, it syncs to your phone by plugging in via USB. See, it automatically syncs up. I'm like, geez, we're living the dream here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, definitely. All right, so we're coming towards the end of our episode here. But before we say goodbye to Walt, we're going to jump into our final segment, the Fix It Funnies.
The fix is in.
It's making a really funny noise.
I'm gonna fix it.
Make it funny would be great if you could make it funny.
Your fate is fixed.
That's what makes it funny. Make sure it's funny.
And so this is where we ask things like, for example, we talked about your favorite summer spot, but where would you like to go in the winter, as winter is around the corner?
I've been to Cuba when I was in the military, and I would love to go back because I went swimming in December and it was spectacular.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good one. The Caribbean, you always want to, I think everyone wants to snowbird or at least get out of Dodge once December rolls around in North America. So I'm there with you.
So with you've been doing a lot of different industries before, but if you were to pick a brand new industry to work in, what would you want to do, Walt?
My high school guidance counselor told me I should be a fire watcher.
You're a watcher. Is like the person like what six one of those things like the Rockies or something like that, or the
No, just somebody sitting there watching a fire.
Oh, okay.
I don't think she had a lot of confidence in me.
Awesome. So when it comes to, for example, content, right? Like right now, what we're doing, where are you consuming your content, and what are you looking at nowadays? When you get off work, what type of content are you consuming just in general?
My favorite funny is the Rockster. It's the guy that does overdubs for dogs. He's flipping hilarious. Because I know my dogs are thinking that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely familiar with that. I'm a dog guy also, so all this is all any social media, it's stuff like that everywhere.
So final question: you have you currently work with the largest direct melter in the U.S., but if you were to do any other type of dream piece of equipment that you were able to work on, or a piece of machinery, what would you want to work on?
There is a recycling plant in Waco, Texas. It's called Lipschitz. They take metal, and so people bring all kinds, cars, frames, raw steel, everything. But they've got this machine that they pick that metal up and they drop it in, and it comes out as like little metal dust. I want to run that machine. And I'll just want to see how big of stuff I can put in there, because it don't hesitate. You can watch that thing just spit out metal all day, and I want to operate that.
So it's just a massive smasher grinder.
Yes.
Okay.
It's got to be the coolest thing in the world.
That's awesome. Well, Walt, thanks again for coming to our show. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you, and it's been a pleasure as always. So for everyone out there, this has been The Maintainers, a Blue Cap community podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you consume your content. as we are on most major platforms, so you can be notified the next time an episode goes live.
This podcast is brought to you by Traction. Traction offers streamlined hardware and software solutions designed to make maintenance more reliable and profitable. Their AI-powered condition monitoring and asset management solution predicts machine failures and unplanned downtime, allowing clients to save an average of $10 million every trimester. It's artificial intelligence quarterbacking your maintenance.